Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about love. I want to break down part one of a two-part series that I'm going to be doing on the book How Not to Die Alone by Logan Ury. Logan is a dating and relationship coach and now the director of relationship science department at Hinge, the online dating app. I'm going to break this series into two parts. This first part is about understanding. I'm going to talk about the archetypes that Logan lays out, challenges of dating in the modern era, and then what we can do to break out of these archetypes if we find that we fall into one of them. The second piece in this video is going to be more practical. This is going to be actual takeaways that you can do. I'm going to give your online dating profile a makeover, how to keep love once you actually find it, and then if you need to break away from it so that you don't keep running back to a possibly toxic partner. So right now we're going to jump into dating in the modern era. I'll have all the timestamps linked up below if you want to kind of dip and dabble a little bit. But before we jump into the archetypes and the mistakes we're making, we got to know the challenges we're up against in the first place. So the first part that Logan talks about with us is challenges. The first challenge is too many options. And what Logan says is back in the day, you're right, we lived in tribes, you had these communities, so you only had so many people that you could actually choose from. These days, when it's the entire world, your entire community, your entire city, if you live in one of these major metropolitan areas, you have so many options that you can't help but second guess your choices every single time. We're always thinking, what if that I make a mistake? And that's what leads us to not really wanting to settle down, at least at first, when we have all these different potential partners that we could potentially link with. So the second challenge Logan talks about is certainty. We want to have certainty before we commit. And this happens even when we're purchasing products. Like think about buying a phone or a computer, where to go on vacation, where to go to dinner. We want certainty before we make the purchase. We want certainty before we jump into the decision. And we're used to that in this day and age. And so we want that with dating too. And unfortunately, this point that I love that Logan makes is great relationships are built, not discovered. Challenge number 3 is we lack relationship role models. If you're lucky, we have parents that are still together, but from the data that Logan talks about in this piece, I think 50% of marriages end in divorce. So most of us haven't grown up with relationship role models. What Logan makes the point is that we grow up with this curated Instagram feed or of Disney movies, and so we have this unrealistic expectation of what a real relationship looks like. And instead, what she says that I think is really interesting is that there needs to be a reality check. She has this other thing that I'll talk about later, but she says, fuck the spark, which I just think is a great point. But it's pretty much, this is not a Disney movie, that relationships are difficult. It's a struggle no matter if it's great or not. And growing up with Disney and curated Instagram feeds, we assume that it needs to be perfect. And so anytime we brush up a little bit of that resistance or it's a struggle, we say, oh, this must not be right because this isn't what I've seen before. I think this is a really interesting point, is just to reframe what a real relationship looks like. And the last piece of this, the last challenge, is that we just feel a lot of pressure to get it right. We feel like you got one shot. It's the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life. And what Logan says is, how can we take the pressure off of dating and actually have fun again? Rather than coming in, having this first date be something that is nerve-wracking and anxiety-producing. Is this person a fit or not? Is this the person for the rest of my life? How can we actually have fun doing this again? And that's what I want to jump into with you in the next section. One of my favorite pieces to this book that Logan lays out, and Logan's theories in general, are these 3 dating tendencies that she created, which I think are spot on, and I definitely see myself in these tendencies. She has a great quiz in the book if you want to check that out. She also has one online. I'll link that up in the video description below if you want to take this and see what your dating tendency is after this video. Mine, I took the quiz and it turns out I'm a maximizer. Once you hear what it is, you'll say, of course, Kia, that makes so much sense. So we all have blind spots when it comes to dating. These are tendencies that we fall into, traps we fall into and don't even realize it. So the way I'm gonna break this down is the 3 tendencies with a brief overview. We're gonna dive into what are kind of the mistakes, the blind spots they have, and then the antidote for any of these archetypes. So the first one is romanticizer. You love love. You know this type of person, they believe in soulmates, they want the meet cute story. The romanticizers feel like it should be a Disney fairy tale. They watch The Notebook and cry and it's just so beautiful. You know those people, romanticizers. The next are the maximizers. This is your boy. This makes so much sense. This is the type of person. I loved the analogy that Logan said. She says, if you're on an airplane and you're gonna watch a movie, do you just find the first thing that you think is great and then you like hop on and start watching that? Or do you have to go through all the movies, all the shows? If you still have time and they haven't made you go on airplane mode yet, do you like check out reviews of the movies? I want to make sure that it's well reviewed. I know what it is that I'm jumping into. With the maximizer, she says, you make decisions carefully and you're worrying about settling. And you're worried that if you do settle or if you do commit, you're making a mistake. And so this is, for me, the bread and butter all the time. The last one, this is the hesitator. And I think I have a little bit of this in me as well, but this is a person that said there's always an excuse why they're not dating. Either I'm working on myself, I've just got a new job, I'm not where I want to be in my career, I don't have enough money. There's an excuse why we aren't jumping into the dating pool. And of course, Dating is a skill like anything else. And so you have to get the reps in. Even if you aren't settling down and you're in the perfect place, you got to take the leap. So that's the hesitator. All three of these are hesitation in a different form. It just manifests differently depending on what your archetype is. I love what she said here. She says, the romanticizer has unrealistic expectations of relationships. The maximizer has unrealistic expectations of their partner. And the hesitator has unrealistic expectations of themselves. So that's kind of the brief overview of the archetypes. So now that we have an idea of the different archetypes, let's talk about the antidote. The first one is, when it comes to the romanticizer, mindset matters. Understanding that you have unrealistic expectations of a relationship and switching your mindset to be more understanding that a relationship is going to have ups and downs, that it will be built. It's not something you stumble upon. You aren't waiting for Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. If you find somebody that you think has qualities that are good enough, and then work on building the relationship from there. One of the things that I thought was so interesting about romanticizer piece is that they have a really hard time staying in relationships, because as soon as they brush up against any sort of difficulty, they dip out because they expect it to be easy, because it's Mr. Right, or this is my soul partner, right? This is my soulmate. They're supposed to know what I like. And so they often fall into this bad cycle of getting into relationships. It starts to be difficult. The maximizer antidote says, don't let perfect be the enemy of great. We always think there's going to be something better out there. Whenever we're in a relationship, we're always kind of still looking around, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, aren't exactly sure that we are going to commit to this one. It's less about the decision and more about how we feel about it. That there are so many potential partners that can be great partners for you. A real quick point on the maximizers. If you started dating at 18, by the time you're 26, most of us have enough data to make an accurate decision. We've encountered enough life partners, had enough relationships to be able to make the decision at that point. She says, make a list of the people that you've dated over the last few years, how you met and how you felt when you met them, what values you shared. From all those people in that list, dial in one person that is going to be your baseline. And the antidote for the hesitator, she says, start small. 1 date a month, 1 date a week, set deadlines, do prep for your new dating life, like get a haircut, new clothes if you need it. Stop talking to your ex. The hesitator, she said, is the person that always gets hung up on the ex, and so they never want to like commit to a new person. Just start. Commit to anybody, or start dating. It doesn't have to be even committing, but start putting yourself out there, start getting the reps for this new dating life, and that'll help a ton. The next piece that we're gonna jump into here that I love is what Yuri talks about, how what we think matters compared to what actually matters. The first one is money. Of course, we overvalue money. It seems rad at first, but just like lust and sexual desire, that fades like everything else. Yes, you want someone you're attracted to, but you'll eventually get used to them no matter how hot they are. Infatuation fades. It's about digging a little deeper than looks. And last, sameness. We often think we want someone who's identical to us. It's actually finding a partner that is a good complement to you, not trying to find someone and date a clone who's the exact same as you. So when it comes to hobbies, you don't have to share the same hobbies. Say it's dancing. I want a partner, I love to dance. I need a partner who loves dancing. We overvalue these hobbies that you don't actually need that person to like. To me, there are a few key traits, and Logan talks about these too, things that we don't value enough. Emotional stability and kindness. The ability to self-regulate, to not freak out when something happens. I need somebody who's tranquilo. I want somebody who's chill, that understands emotions, knows how to self-regulate, isn't gonna freak out over small things. A good relationship doesn't mean no fighting. The key is, and this is what Logan talks about, is learning how to fight well. Learning how to make it so that it's not personal. And the last one that Yuri talks about is decision making. She says, how well do they handle problems when they arise? Like international travel, or you're both invited to a wedding on the same weekend. How do you manage those things? How do you work through those things together? So let's wrap up this first part of How Not to Die Alone with this. It's challenging, not impossible. There are a couple archetypes, things, check out the quiz, see what you are, see what the antidote is for that, and then also understand how can we change our mindset and our priorities to actually value things in a partner we can build a life with someone and feel good about, rather than them just being hot and so we get validation from our friends. I hope you enjoyed part 1. Part 2 will be coming later this week or next week. Thank you to Logan for all the research. This is such a cool book. Highly recommend checking it out. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, smash all the buttons, and I'll check you on the next one.